From the Marquee Media Studio inside Mark Tank, it's the Mark Haney Show.
Yes, this is the Mark Haney Show, and today we are going to do it just a little bit different. My man Scott recommended to me today that I do a solo cast, which really means you get more Mark Haney. Some people don't want more Mark Haney, but some people do, and they want, in many cases, a little bit of perspective on how to win in business, how to win in life. I know tomorrow I'm going to be speaking to a group at House of Bread Church, and I have to follow John Jackson, who is the CEO of William Jessup, and I'm going to be talking about winning and how great we can be, how great we're going to be. So I thought today that I would run through some of my thoughts on that subject. And the one thing that leaps out at me is the amount of opportunity that each of us has that sometimes we don't even recognize. I think life is one big opportunity with so many beautiful choices that we make. And so I feel really privileged to be having made the choice to start a podcast and do a lot of the things that I do today. But there's so many ways that we can take your life, my life, and that's the beauty of living today. We're celebrating how great it is to be us. And so I want to do that a little bit today and really talk about how great we're going to be and how we're going to get there. And it strikes me that most of us identify more with David than Goliath. We all know the story of David and Goliath, and I think a lot of us in small business, we aren't really the Goliaths. There may be a few Goliaths out there, but in life, we end up starting off as a David before we ever really get close to being a Goliath. And that's what entrepreneurship is about. I think that's what, in many cases, that's what small business is about. It's what life is about. And so I want to talk a little bit about that today. I mean, I remember as a kid, asking my Mom, are we rich? And my mom's like, well, Mark, we're rich in love. And I was like, okay. Mom, are we rich? Mark, we're rich in love. And it struck me later that we weren't rich at all. And, we had a railroad track running through our backyard. And that was kind of evidence that from a financial perspective, we were starting at the bottom. And there was a time, later that, I think I saw what was happening with my mom and dad. And I used to want to dream big so that, I could have a life that was a lot different. I remember bugging my little brother as we were laying in bed, and Paul, you want to dream about how great we're going to be? You want to dream about being rich? And he would reluctantly say, okay. And I would typically share my dream of wanting to be a pro football player and ultimately coach my kids in football and live in this big house, circular driveway, cool cars in the front, and of course I would have a hot wife. And my brother Paul, the refiner that he is, the topper that he is, would say, okay, I want all that, big house, circular driveway, pro athlete, coaching, but I'm going to have a really hot maid. I'm like, oh, Paul, you got me. But that's the kind of thing that I guess made me who I am, is that person that wants to dream about a better life, dream about how great we're going to be. I think I got accused as a kid for doing too much daydreaming. And I think to some people that may look like a weakness, but I think many times are parts about us that are maybe considered weaknesses, that are maybe a little bit weird or a little bit off. Maybe we're a little bit slower in school. Maybe I have friends that grew up dyslexic, but that today they're actually using that weirdness, like I'm using my daydreaming capabilities. We are using these to really think a little bit different and approach life a little bit different. And they can be turned into a strength. And I'll talk a little bit about that today. As you think about your strengths, this is really about building an advantage. As you think about yourself being a little bit more like David than Goliath, well, we know David had an advantage. And, he was good with the sling and he took down the mighty Goliath, the giant. It was because he thought a little bit differently. And I think that's really what we need to do if we want to create an advantage. We have to position ourselves in a little bit different way so that we can take advantage of our opportunities. It might be a weakness. It might be something that's weird about us, but it might be something that's just super creative that we've noticed, but it needs to happen because it's too difficult out there to build a business. It's too difficult out there to build this tremendous life, to build a tremendous family, to build a tremendous physique. It's difficult. So you want to, put the odds on your side. And today that's a little bit what I'm going to talk about. The one thing that this dreaming has proven is that if you can dream it, you can do it. Up in my office over here, there's this sign above a gigantic dry erase board. It says, yes, if. Yes, if, ... So what's your dream? What are you wanting to do? How big are you dreaming? And what's it going to take for you to get there, to have that inspired action, that stick-to-itiveness, that part of your persona that can bring out the imagination? Well, the one thing that I do is I have a morning routine, and it works for me. It's strategic at some level, but it's also tactical. And I want to share it with you because I think you may find that there's parts of it that could work for you. I call it 3:15, the moment of truth. So my morning routine, it starts pretty early. And I roll out of bed and I spend that first little bit of time waking up. But ultimately, I begin to look inside myself and decide who I want to be. And I run through a series of questions that I'll share with you. And it begins with, who do I want to be? What do I want to become? What kind of father do I want to be? What kind of husband do I want to be? What kind of man do I want to be? And those answers are inside me. The truth is inside of me. And so that morning routine, I'm spending getting inside what I want to do. And as you think about who you want to become, it's not easy to get there on a daily basis, right? So what I think is important is stacking up great days over and over and over. And if you don't start the morning right, then the chances of it being a great day go way down. And I know so many people who, their life is chaotic in many ways. They're running a million different directions all at the same time. And so they roll out of bed and, they've stayed out late the night before. They roll out of bed and they're foggy. They've hit the snooze button once or twice. And then the next thing you know, their day has started. They're in the car, rolling to work, cup of coffee in their hand, and maybe fighting traffic, but they're getting right into their day. And I think that getting into the right mode before you attack the day it's a huge advantage. And if you don't set aside time for that, then how are you going to get there? So, and what better time to set aside than first thing in the morning so that you can get off on the right foot for the day? So I asked myself, who do I want to be? I started asking myself, who are the people that I'm most grateful for? And I think about my children, my grandchildren, my wife, my teammates, the people that have inspired me in the past to take a risk. And as I think about these people, I start thinking about I would do anything for these people. And what ends up happening is I start finding myself, as I think about what's important to me, as I think about the people that have sort of helped me to get to where I am, my mood kind of shifts, because I don't always wake up in a great mood. Sometimes, I've had a bad dream or two, or maybe something from the day before is still on my mind that's sort of weighing on me. But I can give myself an attitude adjustment. And it's by having some alone time. Nobody else in the house is awake, and I'm in my Renaissance room. We finished building our house, and I'm now in this little gym that we built for me, and it's quiet. I've removed a lot of the I guess distractive kind of things in there, and it's just the stuff that I guess makes me think about what's important to me. And I kneel down and I start talking to God and the truth. And the truth is in me. He is the truth. And I think about what I need to do if I'm going to be the best dad. What I need to do if I'm going to be the best husband. What do I need to do if I want to bring out my own potential as a man? And as I ask myself those questions, I'm thinking about it. I'm spending time thinking about it. The more we become what we think about most. I mean, we've all heard that kind of talk before, but very, very few people set aside the time to think about these really important things. And so the next thing you know, they're caught up in their day, and they don't really spend any time thinking about that. They're only on just reaction. And I think that I can be so much better if I'm thinking about the kind of things that I need to do to make these dreams come true, to make these, what's got to be true in order for me to be the fittest 85-year-old in Loomis. Well, I start thinking about those kind of things. What needs to be true for Haneyville to be the most magical place on earth outside of Disneyland? What needs to be true to ignite an entrepreneurial revolution and build the backyard advantage, the most connected community in the world for local entrepreneurs? What's got to be true? And as I apply my imagination, my thoughts to those things, invariably, I'm coming up with new ideas. My creativity, I'm waking up and my creativity is off the chart. And it probably takes me 45 minutes to an hour. It's like an hour of really kind of stretching out before I start my first workout of the day. But using this time to get in my head. And so I guess I would ask you, when is your time? What time do you set aside to figure that out? Because I like to do it first thing in the morning. If you like to do it late at night, I'm sure that could be effective. It could happen, I'm sure, in the middle of the day. It can happen over and over throughout the day. But if we want to create an advantage, if we want to tap into that imagination, if we want to tap into that inspired action, if we want to remind ourselves why we're doing these things, those are the kinds of things that give us the desire to stick to it, right? We have to spend some time thinking about that. And sadly, so many people don't. They end up disappointed with where they're at. Some people are blaming other people for where they're at. So I look in the mirror and say, there's no one to blame but myself. And I do that first thing in the morning. 3:15 is when I've been doing it for the last 20 years or so. I'm in the process of modifying that to be a little bit later, but it's still an hour that I've cut out in the day to make sure that I hit the day running at my very best opportunity. And I think back, a lot of you guys probably played sports. So anybody who's played high school sports knows that there's this time when you're, pregame, when you're getting ready for the big game. I was the quarterback of my high school football team, And I remember, the pregame, right? This is, I'm likening this to my 3:15 moment of truth time, right? But before the game, right, I got this big game. I got this big day ahead of me. You're tightening up the chin strap. You're, getting yourself ready to maybe take some hits. And, you're kind of prepping for that intense battle. And so we would line up and get ready to run on the field. The JV team has already wrapped up their day, and we're all in line. And I was typically the front of the line as the quarterback, and down below is like the tunnel that the cheerleaders, are waiting for us with the banner. And, you're ready, you're pretty pumped up, and then you become extremely fired up when you hear, for us, it was Rocky, the theme from Rocky. Bop, 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 bop. As soon as I heard that, it was like the chills coming through me. I was ready to hit somebody at that point, and then we run on the field, break through. And I think that pre-game process, that pre-day process, it elicits the inspired action. It brings out the best, at least for the start of the day, at least for that first workout of the day. But, workouts develop, right? You get in and you're having a good workout. Now you've got a little bit of confidence. Your first few meetings of the day, the different things that you do throughout the day begin by getting off on the wrong foot, the right foot. You get off on the wrong foot. You start your day stressed, and next thing you know, you just got one of those chaotic, stressful days, and you wake up at the end of the day and like, what did I do today? God, I don't even remember. It was like one thing after another. Instead, pre-planning that stuff at the beginning of the day. What do I got going? What's important to me? How am I going to make today a perfect day? What's going to happen right off the bat? If you can get that going right now in the morning, you're so much better off throughout the day, or at least that's what I found for me. So if you're out there thinking, okay, I can't get up at 3:15, how do I find my 3:15 moment of the truth? What I would say is it's important to find a time when you can be alone, where you can shut yourself off from everybody else. And the one thing about 3:15 or 4:15 or 5:15 is, typically you don't have to be to work till, 8 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, or your first workout may not be till a little bit later. But I would say go to bed early, right? So I get to bed early so that I still end up getting enough sleep. So I think at some point you got to look in the mirror and go, what, am I happy with where I'm at? And if you are, well, fantastic. I'm not saying that you need to make the change. I'm saying if you want to create, and if you already have your advantage and you're clicking on all cylinders, well, knock yourself out, keep rolling. But if you're sitting there going, well, no, I think I do have another gear. I think there are more things that I would like to accomplish. I do have dreams that, are, beyond where, the trajectory that I'm on currently. Well, you better do something, right? So what are you going to do? I mean, you need to carve yourself out some time to make a plan and work the plan. And if you don't spend some time figuring that out, even to the point of, I don't have a big dream, well, you need to set aside some time so you can create a big dream, so you can start thinking about who do you want to be? What did you want to be as a kid? Tap into that part of you that didn't get stomped out by society, and that didn't cause you to conform to being an 8-to-5er, working for the weekend, playing for the paycheck. There's probably a part of you that at one point was thinking, man, I wonder what my true potential is. What could I do? How great could I be? And if you set aside some time to think about that, then, I don't care when you do that, but there's nobody, get up before everybody else. And there's really no excuses at that point, because what ends up happening is later in the day, it's so easy, at least for me, to to build up excuses like, oh, I got this, I got that, this came up, I got everybody, pulling at me. And, sometimes it's tough to say no to some of those things, and there's emergencies that come up. Well, there's no emergency at 3:15 in the morning, right? Who do you got to blame if you can't get your butt out of bed? And if it's 3:15 or 4:15 or 5:15, that's up to you. But, it is on you, and life is on you. A great life, nobody's going to hand you a great life. We're all the Davids. We're going to have to use some imagination to figure out how to unleash our full potential. I mean, as I started off the show saying, we only get one life. There's so many beautiful choices. Well, life can be anything we want it to be. Everything is figure outable. Well, maybe you need to set some time to figure out what you want to figure out. And, but if you do have the big dream and maybe you are a little bit off track, well, you need to set aside that time. You just need to figure out a way. And if you don't, you got no one to blame but yourself. You don't want to wake up, when you're 85 years old and, coulda, woulda, shoulda, and all these kind of things. You don't have regrets. No excuses, no regrets. So how did I arrive at the 3:15? I mean, well, I knew I needed an advantage, and my company at the time was expanding onto the East Coast, and we really saw a window of opportunity to expand. And I feel like that window, it was important for me to seize that window to expand. And so that meant me being hands-on. I wanted to be the first person to get there and, the last person to leave. And with employees working on East Coast stuff and opening up offices on the East Coast, and I said, I'm going to get up early, and I'm one of those people that likes to work out. So I started just going, okay, what time do I got to get up? And I'm going to work out. And I'd go for a little run. And, that time running for me, jogging, that was my thinking time. And it sort of has evolved from there. But, back to what we were talking about a second ago, the best advice my dad ever gave me is never buy a lottery ticket. I'm like, okay, why? I remember when the lottery first came out in the early 80s, and he's like, don't ever buy a lottery ticket. And I was like, wow, that's kind of interesting that he would say, don't waste your money on that. And ultimately, I took that to mean you're the lottery ticket. You're your own lottery ticket. Bet on yourself. Why would you hope that things somehow magically come together for you? They just don't. The hope is not, I think we've heard hope is not the best strategy in many cases. And you are your own lottery ticket. You can figure it out. And so it takes a long time. You need to have stick-to-itiveness, but if you just keep betting on yourself over and over and over, morning after morning after morning, betting on yourself to figure it out, you will. That's what's happened to me on every business I've ever done, starting with my newspaper route when I was a little kid. I mean, we had the in-home delivery. We battled Goliath. That was the Sacramento Bee, and they had the huge market share. We had the Sacramento Union, but we leaned the newspaper up against the front door, and it actually fell into the house, creating in-home delivery, and we kicked Goliath's ass. Later, we had video stores, and we had Blockbuster and Hollywood next to all of our video stores at one point. And they were the Goliaths, and here we are. We've got a dozen video stores. What are we going to do? Use our imagination to create an advantage. And our advantage was we flooded the market with beta VCRs, right? There was beta and there was VHS. Well, Blockbuster and Hollywood didn't really like to carry a lot of beta because it was, not as popular. Well, we made it popular in Sacramento, selling thousands and thousands of beta VCRs at and around cost, basically flooding the market with beta VCRs. And when somebody wanted to go find a decent selection of beta movies, where'd they come? They came to us. We did that with our security camera companies, creating a Keiretsu, which is a family of companies with, common ownership, and finding synergies with this vertical integration strategy. But everything we did, we were always battling the Goliaths, and in security, it's been Honeywell for a long time. So when you are a David, you've got to figure out a different approach, because it's tough to it's tough to beat the big guys when you haven't used enough creativity, and it's tough to use enough creativity if you don't set aside the time to be creative. And I drive home that point because people don't set aside the time. And the other thing that I've learned is that nobody builds a truly great company alone. Nobody builds a truly great business alone. We have these big dreams of maybe building a great company, maybe even a big company, maybe even eventually becoming a Goliath. But we don't start these things alone. We might start them alone, but it doesn't become truly great until we begin adding the right people. So that concludes part one of this section, and I'm gonna finish it up next week with the 3 questions you've got to get right if you want to build something truly great. So stick around next week, a little more Mark Haney, and I think it's going to be a great show. So hope you tune in then. Thanks for watching today's show. My goal for every episode is that you find a takeaway, something tangible you can use in your business today. And if you have a comment about a favorite takeaway, feel free to put it in the box below. And if you have a topic that you'd like me to bring up on the show, don't forget to let me know. And also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to learn more about entrepreneurship. Because at Haney Biz, we are always by your side.